My name is Dario. I am a specialist in the Education Abroad office, and I'm here today to talk to you about education abroad opportunities in Latin America. I have a few other colleagues in the event that I'm going to have introduce themselves, as well as one of our students who did a program in Latin America, Stella. I'll have her introduce herself too. But yeah, if Jen and Kirsty and Matt want to also introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Jennifer. I'm one of the advisors, and I advise students with the last name M through Z. So I look forward to working with you.
And I'm Kirsty. I am Jen's counterpart, and I advise students with the last names A through L.
Hi, everyone. My name is Matt McGilvery. I actually work for the University of Minnesota, but we partner with Seattle U to offer one of our programs to you guys.
Stella.
And my name is Stella. I am a senior at SU, majoring in psychology, minoring in sociology. I use she, her pronouns, and I studied abroad last fall in Buenos Aires, Argentina.
Awesome. So you will hear more from both Matt and Stella in a little bit as we go over some of their programs. But first thing, we wanted to just really quickly give you a little bit of a note about study abroad in COVID. Obviously, we talk about it so much these days, but just wanted to give you some context about how SU is going about this. So while there are currently no students studying abroad at the moment, we are hopeful that students will soon be able to travel abroad on study abroad programs. So we're doing a lot of planning, working with our different providers and everyone to make sure that there's great protocols in place. So if you have concerns or if you're worried about that, definitely we're here to chat with you about that. But then at the same time, a lot of what you are thinking about is maybe not going to happen for maybe another year or so. So hopefully by the time you are actually getting ready to go abroad, things will maybe have calmed down or at least gotten to a place where it's just a bit easier for us to travel. So just a quick note about that. Like I said, if you're concerned, definitely let us know and we can chat with you about all those different things. So kind of I wanted to start off with why you might be interested in studying abroad in Latin America. As you know, we have programs all over the world, but there's a lot of good reasons to think about Latin America as a location to study abroad. And first I wanted to open up to Stella, maybe to see if she had some ideas about why she chose to study abroad in a Latin American country from the student perspective.
Definitely, yeah. I think that Jen can attest. I really had a lot of different options and not really sure exactly where I wanted to study abroad when starting this whole discernment process of where I wanted to go and spend a whole quarter of school. But I was looking at a bunch of different programs all around the world, some in Europe, some in Asia, and then ended up deciding on going to South America and to Buenos Aires specifically to kind of master the language of Spanish. That's something that I decided was important to me during my time abroad. And additionally, because the courses that were also offered there, I was very interested in kind of the social and political change that was happening in Argentina specifically. And so that's kind of ultimately what drew me to studying abroad there.
Awesome, thank you. I'm glad you ended up with that decision because it sounds like you had a great time. And so yeah, so obviously those are a lot of reasons why students choose to go studying abroad in Latin America. Language acquisition is a great one. But here are some other great things about the region that I think students often think about or just that could be a great benefit. The first that we talked about is it's an extremely geographically diverse region. There's mountains, beaches, rainforests, coastlines, islands, all that you have the option to, some even within the same country. And so that could be a great way, one, to just enhance your studies if you're interested in studying geography or even anything that has to do with the land. Obviously that shapes so much of what we do. But then also if you're just someone who likes to explore, likes to get out in the outdoors, Seattle area, we tend to be interested in that in general. And so there's a lot of great things that are accessible to you that you have the option to do to enhance your studies, but then also just to enhance your own adventure and just seeing really beautiful parts of the world. And then with that, Latin America is also the most urbanized continent, with over 80% of its population living in cities. And so you'll see large cities, small cities, some that are all very diverse, lots with histories that are very complex and have histories of colonization, but then also how they are working to preserve indigenous and native cultures, and also at the same time welcoming international people. So a lot of cities you'll see are very international with that influence throughout all of Latin America. Another thing that is interesting to students is obviously the cost of living is much lower in lots of places in Latin America. And so finances are a huge thing for students, no matter who you are. And so thinking about going abroad can be kind of daunting, but then if you think about this region, it could be a little bit more accessible just because it might be a lot cheaper to live in a certain city in Latin America than it is to live in Seattle, where we do have a very high cost of living. So your buck can go a lot further there. And then like Stella says, Spanish is a great reason to go if you're wanting to learn it, or if you're just interested in learning about the different cultures. Spanish is the second most spoken language in the United States. So even if it's not what you're majoring or minoring in, it could be a great way to just at least start learning the language. And then lastly, there's a really complex and historical relationship between lots of Latin American countries and the United States. And so we get one perspective of that just living in the United States or wherever we grew up. And it could be a great way to learn about just that from the other side or from a different perspective, which is really important in any education, just to get the various perspectives about certain historical events and even current day events that are happening. So obviously, kind of just an overview. There's lots of great reasons, but these are some things to think about as you're maybe deciding on where you want to study abroad. So next, we're going to highlight some of our different programs in Latin America. We obviously can't go through every single one, but we broke it down based off of the different kind of structures of programs in terms of what your day-to-day life might look like, or like what your academic experience might look like. And so the first program type we have are programs that are with local universities. And so what this means is oftentimes you are taking classes with other local students, especially if you have some Spanish language proficiency. Sometimes these do require a little bit more independence because you might be at a university where your main source of support is like an international student center type situation. So that's one thing to note about that, but that could be a great option for you based on what you're looking for. So the first program we're going to look at is with a provider that we work with called ISA. And they have a program in San Jose, Costa Rica, with a university there called the Universidad Veritas. And this program, it's on the lower end of our program fees. So it's considered an SU sponsored program, meaning that you pay SU tuition for the quarter that you're going, and then there's the additional $2,000 program fee. And so if you've attended one of our info sessions, you might have learned about that, but if you haven't, it'll be a great next step to learn a little bit more about those logistics. But this is a great program that has courses in environmental studies, health sciences, history, political science, social sciences, all of those. And the location offers a great access point into the region. Especially if you're thinking about environmental sciences or if you're interested in the outdoors. For these programs, you'd be staying in a homestay or what they call a tico with a local family. So that's a great way to learn about the local culture, maybe to practice your Spanish either formally or informally, that sort of thing. And they have lots of great excursions. Like I said, there's lots of great things to see in the region, different types of natural wonders, volcanoes, that sort of thing. So one thing about this program, there's also a service learning option with a local organization, kind of varying based on what your interests are. So yeah, that's what I say. And next we have a short video that we'll show for our next location in Colombia. Okay, so that was our a little bit of a video of Colombia. This is actually a brand new program on our list, and Colombia is just becoming an area that we're able to start sending students to more frequently. So this is a new exciting location. Again, on the lower end with the $2,000 program fee. As you can see, it's a city right on the coastline, so a lot of really great time you can have on the beach. And this program focuses heavily on a lot of our kind of STEM majors, so chemistry, electrical engineering, mathematics are some highlights, but then there's also business courses, psychology, sociology. So a lot of great things for students here. One thing that's kind of cool about this program is that you actually have the opportunity to do research if you're interested. You can do it in English or Spanish. So if you're interested in adding some research to your undergraduate career, this could be a great option for you. And this program also, if you do have some Spanish skills, there is some service learning options available. And so that's a great option. Excursions that they highlight are to some other Colombian cities. So Cartagena is one, and some great national parks. So this is definitely something that we're excited about, and hopefully we'll send some students there soon. And next we're going to Peru. Okay, so this is also with our provider ISA. And one thing about this program, but then also the two previous programs that I kind of forgot to mention, is that there are courses offered in English. And so if you are not someone who speaks Spanish or is studying Spanish, they still have a lot of courses offered in English. So you're not just, so you're not limited there. Sometimes you might take like an intro to Spanish level language just to help you adjust, to help you kind of navigate the cities. But that's the great thing about a lot of these programs, is that you're actually able to take courses in English if you're not a Spanish major or minor. This program is located in Cusco, Peru, though. $4,000 program fee. The one unique thing about this is you actually can take Quechua as a course, which is a language spoken in Peru with native populations. So that's kind of a cool, unique thing. Similarly, you're staying in homestays, or you have the option of a pension, which is kind of similar to like a student residence, maybe with other international students. So that's a great way to meet other people. An excursion to Machu Picchu is included in this program, as well as some other areas in the region, and service learning is available here too. And some of the ones that they highlight are community development, education, so like working with youth, different environmental service organizations that you can work with. I think learning about the local nature and different forests, preserves, things like that. So that could be a really cool option to just get a little bit more in touch with the community. Yeah, so that's ISA Peru. And then now we're going to Argentina. Okay, so this is our program in Buenos Aires, Argentina. And I'll actually go ahead and let Stella just give a little bit of a overview about the program, what some highlights were for her. Obviously everyone can kind of read what's on the screen, so if there's anything that she wants to highlight, or you want to highlight, Stella, definitely feel free.
Sounds good. Watching that video was so sweet. It was so nice seeing some of those images that I haven't seen in a while. But yeah, so the ISA program in Argentina is really incredible. I really enjoyed my time there. The nice thing about going through another program as well is that you get a lot of support, both from our education abroad office, but also from the people who work in their offices. You can kind of use both to make sure that you're getting very well-rounded support before you go and also while you're in the country. Some of this time, this is support for like getting a visa when you're going abroad, or maybe it's events that are happening in the city that week. So ways that you can go get involved in the local culture. And then ISA also offers outings every week. Some of them are listed here. They'll take you to Tigre, which is like a nearby little town that's on the water. It's super beautiful. They'll take you to tango classes at night, some museums in the city. And then also you may go farther away, like you can take a plane ride with them and go to Iguazu, which are some really famous waterfalls that you saw in that video. So lots of fun things that you can actually do with the program. And then in addition to that, with housing, you can either live with homestays or you can live in residencias, which is more kind of like dorm style living. I chose to live with 2 different host families while I was there. One of them was really fun. There's a little boy and different like siblings in the household. And then I also lived with an older woman who's about 84. She was super sweet. Her name was Coco. And I just have some really great memories hanging out with her and her friends at night. So definitely different ways that you can kind of choose different housing situations to whatever you prefer for your living style. And then in terms of classes, they're all through the University of Belgrano, which is kind of like a little neighborhood, Belgrano, in the city of Buenos Aires. So it's nice because you kind of have a little bit more of a quiet experience at school. It's all pretty much in one tall building. And then you can either take classes in English or Spanish. And you can take classes if you'd like with locals, or you could take them just with international students as well, depending on which type of program you choose. So could not recommend doing this program enough. It's incredible. The program directors are lovely and yeah, super fun.
Awesome. Thank you, Stella, for highlighting all that, especially from the student perspective. That's really helpful. Last thing I would point out with that program is that you do have an option for an intensive month before the start of the program, where you can get there a little bit early and either get up to speed on Spanish or just advance your Spanish even more so that you're able to navigate the city or interact with people a little bit better in the local language. So then the next type of program we're going to highlight is programs that are operated through study centers. So what this means is that there might be a specialized center there run by our different partner organizations that are run by local staff, where you'd be doing all of your courseworks at the center, or hybrid, where you might do some at largely at the center and then some with a local university. But these programs tend to focus on welcoming American students into the area. So oftentimes they're just really prepared to help you navigate the city, to help you learn about the culture. Sometimes the courses can be a little bit more specialized because they're run specifically through the center and they're catering to kind of American students with American university requirements. And for these programs, largely you'd be doing the program and taking your courses with other American students from other universities across the United States. So just a little bit different in compared to our previous type. But the first one we're going to look at is in Santiago, Chile. Awesome. So this program is run with one of our partner providers called USAC. It's based in Santiago, Chile. And Santiago is a really bustling city, large urbanized location. And the great thing about this program is it's at the lower end of our program fees with $2,000. And then, as you can see, a lot of different areas for different majors in terms of the disciplines offered and the field of study. One thing that they say about Santiago is it's a gateway to the outdoors. So Chile is a very diverse geographic location. And so you get the coast, you get the mountains, you get different types of forests and rainforests and cloud forests. And so they talk about a lot about opportunities for outdoor activities like skiing, surfing, hiking, horseback riding, that sort of thing. So definitely an opportunity to kind of get that mix of both an urban large city with also having the opportunity to explore all those other things as well. And they also highlight the blend in terms of the diversity of the city being really influenced obviously by the native and local culture, but then also the colonization of Spain and the impact that had on the history of the city and the country. And then also because it's such a big city, a lot of international residents that kind of are starting to make an impact on the city life as well. So definitely a great option. And obviously they have all those great field trips that you saw on the pictures, that some are just included as part of your opportunity to go, but then also some more optional things based on what your interests are. So yeah. Next, we are traveling to Brazil. Okay, sorry. Our program in Brazil is in Florianopolis, which is actually an island off the coast of Brazil. So that is a huge part of what the makeup of your time in this program would be. So lots of time on beaches. There's surfing courses, things like that. But Brazil is a great place because it's becoming one of the largest economic forces in the world right now. It's the 5th largest and it's the largest growing. And so that has a big influence obviously on business, economics, human development, and especially like refugee and immigrant populations in Brazil. So that's a great thing to kind of see firsthand in this program. There are no language prerequisites for this program, so you don't need to speak Portuguese, but it's a great option is if you are an arts and sciences student who does need to fulfill 1 year of foreign language, you could do that at this program or even any of the other programs because you have the option to take Spanish or in this case Portuguese. So even if you aren't studying language, it could be a great way to fulfill some requirements. And some of the courses that they highlight are those in human natural resource development, business, Brazilian culture, global development. And in this program, you actually have the opportunity to do an internship. Is something that they're highlighting with USAC. And so it kind of depends on what you're interested in, but they have internships with National Park Services to kind of do conservation work, or you could do the flip side and work with the Brazilian government to see how they're enacting policy around preservation work. But then there's also things if you're interested in working with youth services, teaching English. And then, like I mentioned, there's a large immigrant and refugee population in this area. And so they have opportunities to do internships with organizations or nonprofits type programs to provide assistance for these communities. So as you could see from that video, there's lots of really great outdoors things to explore in the area, just kind of a really unique place to go. And one thing that we do highlight is that this does have a $0 program fee. So you would be just paying SU tuition. And then a lot of your other costs are kind of already included in that. So it could be a really affordable way to go about getting to the region and studying abroad. So yeah. Okay, so the next type of program that we are highlighting is what we call experiential or field studies programs. And so a lot of these programs end up taking place like at a local study center that might partner with a local university maybe. But what's unique about these programs is they actually require a heavy amount of immersion as part of the academics. So that could be required internships or required research as part of your program. So if you're interested in kind of having a little bit more of that hands-on type experience, these are great options to look at just because it's built heavily into the program. So the first that we'll look at is with a provider called IES, and they have a program in the Galapagos Islands in Ecuador. So this is a really cool, unique program. And the way that the structure works is that you have 5 weeks that you do in Quito, which is the capital there. And you do that at first. And then you spend the rest of the time in the Galapagos Islands doing different types of field studies work. And so there's a few different tracks that you can choose between, and they're kind of listed there based on what you're more specifically interested in. But then if you are certified, you actually have the option to scuba dive as part of this program and do that in conjunction with your academic work. So that's something that we've had a lot of students, especially those interested in environmental sciences or natural sciences, do on this program. And they recently added that last track about sustainable tourism. And so that's something that's becoming more and more popular, especially if we're thinking about this region, just how they're going about it, and then kind of what sustainability means in terms of preserving these different natural wonders. So that's a really cool program, and that last month is when you're really doing that intensive field study and research work. So. And then next, we also have another program in Ecuador that we want to highlight. And actually, Matt is a representative from Msid. And so I'll just give him a couple of minutes to talk about that program and to do any highlights that you'd like. So.
All right, thanks, Dario. So before I talk about the program briefly, I would just also give a personal endorsement to studying abroad in Latin America. When I was an undergraduate student at the University of Minnesota, I went on our programs in Mexico and in Venezuela back when that was more feasible. And I had a great experience, learned so much and grew a lot. So, definitely encourage all of you who are interested in studying abroad in the region to really do your best to get out there and do it. But yeah, like Dario mentioned, I work for the University of Minnesota. I work a lot with this program. We actually accept students from all over the US. So Seattle U students, Minnesota students, and students kind of from everywhere else come on this program. And the MSID stands for Minnesota Studies in International Development. So this program was created by our faculty like 35 years ago. We have them in several locations. It was built originally as somewhat of a mini Peace Corps type experience. It's evolved from there, but that's kind of the mindset that you can think about this program. The first half of the semester, you'll be in Quito taking classes with all the other students in the program. In Ecuador, generally, we have between 20 to 30 students, so not too big. And then the second half of the semester, for 7 weeks, we actually pair every student up with a local organization that is doing the type of development work that student would be interested in. And then you do a full-time internship with them for the rest of the semester. There's a few different themes or tracks within the program that you can kind of base your experience on, but whether you're interested in teaching working with a women's program, working with a farming cooperative, working with other small businesses, working with migrant populations, really whatever type of work you'd be interested in. If it's within the field of international development, we can find an experience for you. And it's, yeah, like Dario mentioned, it's definitely an experiential program. It's for independent students who really want to learn by doing the work. And the one important note as well is that it is all in Spanish. So we do require that students have at least 4 semesters of college level Spanish to enter the program. While that is kind of a high bar, all your classes are taught in Spanish and your internship will be completely in Spanish. So it really, once you get through those 4 semesters, this program would definitely allow for a mastery of the language over the course of that semester. But yeah, if you have any questions, please reach out. It's a great program. I did not go on it as a student, but I had plenty of classmates in my Spanish classes who did. And I was pretty jealous of all of them, but I will be at the virtual fair tomorrow. So definitely stop by the virtual booth. We can chat more. But yeah, thanks for having me.
Thanks, Matt. That's super helpful. Yeah, so definitely, like Matt said, he'll be at the fair tomorrow. If you have more questions about that program specifically, as well as a lot of our other providers that I've talked about, so USAC, ISA, all of them will be at the virtual fair tomorrow. So if any of these particularly looked interesting, definitely come by tomorrow and learn more. So then the last program in this category that I'm going to highlight is SIT in Peru, which is also in Cusco. And they have a similar structure to the program that Matt just talked about in Ecuador. And so this program focuses on indigenous peoples and globalization. So your courses are pretty structured. There's only a set amount of courses that you can take. But they all focus on history of indigenous peoples, Spanish, other topics related to research, such as methods and ethics, because research and internships are a big part of your experience with this. So the coursework kind of prepares you for that. And so in this program, you do the first part of the semester in classwork, kind of preparing, and then you spend the last month or so, month and a half of the program doing what's called an independent study project. Yes. And so essentially what this means is within the area of Peru, within the concept of working with indigenous peoples and globalization, you can do an independent studies project that really fits your specific passions and goals. So they help you find a topic or work with a topic that aligns with your interests and then with the coursework. And you are kind of on your own to do that research, which is really great, especially if you're someone who's pretty motivated, has a specific interest area that you're looking at. And your last couple of weeks of the program is then kind of a wrap-up seminar of the time that you did. So Kirsty did an SIT program during her undergraduate time at SU. And so if you're curious more about just kind of that structure, what it means to be kind of that independent student, definitely reach out to her and she can be a great resource for that. So obviously, in addition to all that, they do the same kind of thing in terms of excursions. So just taking you all around the area so you can learn about the history and the culture. And so, yeah, a really great program for, like we said, students who are kind of motivated and want to do that more independent kind of travel or research or internship. So, yeah. Okay, and so then the final type of program that we are going to highlight is our faculty led program. And so what this means is Seattle University faculty who are teaching programs or teaching classes with students abroad. And so the program that we'll highlight is actually in Puebla, Mexico, with the Latin American Studies program. And so the way that this structure works is you actually kind of prepare together as a course or as a group on campus during fall quarter. You kind of do some prep work to get acquainted with the region, to make sure your Spanish is up to par. And then you actually travel abroad for winter quarter and spring quarter, or you can choose to go winter quarter or spring quarter. And like I said, you're going with other SU students, you're going with SU faculty, one of which is joined with us today, who has gone in the past, Diana Luna, who is a professor in the modern languages, but teaches in Spanish. So I don't know if you want to mention anything about your time in Puebla, or if there's anything else you want to highlight, Diana. Kind of putting you on the spot, but
Thank you so much, Dario. It's really great to be part of this. And thank you for coordinating and organizing this event. Yes, I've been fortunate that I've been leading this trip since 2003. And it's been a wonderful, wonderful experience. I'm originally from Ecuador. So Matthew, you will need to go to Ecuador and visit the Galapagos Islands. And also I'm jealous of Estela. I wanted to take Estela to Puebla, but she went to Argentina, which is a great destination. So yes, Puebla has been, it's been already 30 years that we've been managing this program with the families. The host families are wonderful, that we've known for so many years, and we had great experiences. And so definitely it's a wonderful destination. Mexico is an incredible country. I fell in love with it since the first time I went there. And well, throughout Latin America, it's a great destination. So I highly recommend it to any of our students to go anywhere, to explore the world. And I always tell them my first experience, and I thank my parents for sending me here to improve my English. And so that opened up my, horizons for so many other languages like French and Portuguese. So I highly recommend it. And my students will be visiting some of these places that you are, showing today. And so I think it's great. I highly recommend it. And feel free to email me. My students are aware of our program. And so we're really, really fortunate. So if you have any questions, if anyone has any questions, please let me know. And un abrazote, Estela.
Thank you, Diana. We really appreciate you sharing a bit.
Thank you. We're really fortunate with everything you do for our students.
Yeah. So definitely reach out to Modern Languages, to Spanish Department, to Diana if you have questions about the Latin American Studies program. Students really love it. Puebla is a great city, lots of history, super relevant in terms of just the history of the city, but then also just culturally, you'll get a really great understanding of what life is like in Mexico and that area. So they also do excursions, all of that. So you can go to Mexico City for one of the terms, or the Yucatan. So yeah, a great option there, especially if you're a student who is doing a Spanish major or minor, because it is a language intensive program. Okay, so we did want to do a little bit of highlighting of scholarships. Like I mentioned earlier, and as everyone knows, finances are a big thing in just everyday life, and then especially thinking about if you're able to study abroad. And so we definitely recognize that it can be a challenge for students, but we do have a lot of resources available. And also a big thing is scholarships. So there's so many scholarships out there for study abroad. And some that we'll highlight is there's actually program specific scholarships. So a lot of the providers that we highlighted, like ISA or USAC or SIT or whoever, they themselves have a lot of scholarships just that you can apply for by doing one of their programs. And oftentimes we hear that a lot of that money goes unallocated because students don't end up applying for them. So that is one thing just to remember as you're kind of going through this process, to look for all of the different opportunities that are out there for scholarships, just because there is a lot. So that's one way to look for scholarships. There's also national need-based and diversity scholarships. And so these are national scholarships that you'll apply for via application. Oftentimes it's a personal statement or recommendations, things like that. But two that we highlight are the Gilman scholarship, and then the Fund for Education Abroad. And so the Gilman is a need-based scholarship. So if you're a Pell Grant recipient, you're eligible to apply for the Gilman, and they have a significant amount of funds they can give. It can be helpful if you're going for a longer period of time for the Gilman. But then there's also the Fund for Education Abroad, which has a lot of scholarships, especially for underrepresented populations in study abroad, so students of color, LGBTQ students, things like that. And so there's actually just one application you fill out for that, and they kind of sort your application based off all the things you're eligible for. So those are really great scholarship opportunities. And there's also language scholarships through the Boren is one, which I don't know if the Boren counts for Spanish.
It does not count for Spanish,
Yeah.
But you can take if you're taking Quechua, so like the program with SIT in Peru, you're doing both Spanish and Quechua. So if you're taking Quechua, then you can apply for the Boren.
Great. Yeah, so still opportunities within that as well. So there's one thing that we say just with scholarships is that there are a lot of SU resources, and a lot of that is just planning early. And so a lot of times these applications can be 6 months, 8 months, almost a year before you're even thinking about going abroad. While we'll definitely help you highlight the ones that are most applicable to you, and we'll give you some resources to do some just research, using whatever kind of way you time manage, whether it's in your phone, putting the deadlines, or just in your planner that you write down, whatever it is. A lot of times just planning early can be a really great way to make sure you secure some of this funding. Oh, sorry. And with that, we also on campus have an Office of Fellowships. And so if you're thinking about applying for like the Gilman or something like that, they are also a great resource to help you with your applications, your essays. That's kind of what their main role is, to help students get those types of things. So they're definitely a great resource. And so then really quickly, just want to give you a timeline of what the process looks like for studying abroad. So maybe some of you have already kind of engaged with our office, or maybe this is your first time. But after today, if you haven't already attended an info session, that would be a great first step. And so the info sessions are a required step just so that you can get an overview about how the process works, what the different program types and how those program types work with credits, with financial aid, that sort of thing. There's a lot of details that are kind of important when it comes to study abroad. And so the info session just gives you a great overview of that, so that you can begin doing a little bit of more research based off of areas you're interested in. And then it prepares you for the next step, which is advising. And so advising in our office, you've already met today, Jen and Kirsty, they're our two main advisors. And so based on your last name, you'll meet with one of them. And the first step in advising is actually group advising. So you'll meet with between 2 to 5 other students with Jen or Kirsty. And that just goes into more depth about the different programs, into budgets. So you'll actually fill out an example of a budget for a program, credits, all of that, a little bit more in depth. So it's a great way to even answer even more of your specific questions. And then after that, you're able to meet one-on-one with Jen or Kirsty as many times as you need. We also recommend at that time to also have a conversation with your academic advisor from your major department, just so that they're aware that you're wanting to study abroad, so that they can help you put it into your plan. Sometimes it takes a few years out to plan it out. And so your academic advisor is a great resource because they're much more familiar with your degree requirements, so they can be a great resource that way. And so then after you met with us as many times as you need, it's your opportunity to apply. And so depending on which type of program you end up choosing to apply to, the application process will look a little bit different. For most of the programs that we highlighted today, other than the faculty-led program in Mexico, your deadline, those are considered, the ones that we highlighted other than that are considered sponsored or sponsored programs. And so your deadline for that would be this coming February 1st, if you're wanting to go anytime next academic year. So if you're wanting to go abroad anytime next fall 2021 or spring 2022, you'd be applying by this coming February 1st. So it does sneak up on you a little bit, especially as the fall quarter flies by, but definitely good to keep that on your radar if you're wanting to study abroad next year. After that, after you apply and are nominated and accepted to a program, there are some pre-departure steps that you'll complete. The biggest of these is getting your courses approved before you go abroad. So before you go abroad, any courses you want to take, you'll get them approved by your major department or your minor department or the core if you're wanting to take core courses abroad. And then you'll get those approved by those departments and they'll sign off on it. So before you even go abroad, you'll know exactly what the credits you take abroad will count for here at SU. So that's a big part of pre-departure. There's also visas. There's a pre-departure orientation that my office does. So we're here to kind of guide you through all of that as well. And then finally, the next step is to study abroad. So after all of that hard work, you actually get to have the experience of going abroad. And as has been testified by a few people here today, it's a really great experience, really awesome opportunity. So it's well worth all of the work. And then after that, we welcome you back to campus. So we're here to make sure that everything gets transferred back to SU correctly. We help connect you with other students who have studied abroad recently. We try to host events when we can have events in person where we're actually getting together and having some fun and some food to go over the experience. And then also to kind of think about how you can apply that experience to a resume or a cover letter. We've done in the past, we've done some workshops with the Career Engagement Office. Or if you're wanting to go abroad again, either at SU or post-grad, we also have resources in our office. Jen, one of our advisors, she did the JET program. So she taught abroad in Japan for several years post-grad. So we have great resources in our office if you're wanting to do something like that as well. Yeah, and so we did want to highlight right after this, so in about 11 minutes, Stella and our the resident director in Buenos Aires, Argentina, are hosting an Argentine cooking class. And so they're going to, I can let Stella do a little bit about that if you'd like.
Yeah, we'll just be, we're going to be cooking alfajores, which is like an Argentine dessert, kind of like cookies with dulce de leche inside. It's delicious. And also empanadas, and just talking a little bit about ISA and going abroad and living in Argentina. It's going to be super fun. If you have some time after this, we'd love to see you there.
Great. And we, and then Jen put that link for the Zoom in the chat. So definitely feel free to click on that when you, well, if you can attend, we'd love for you to attend. And then, like we mentioned earlier, tomorrow is actually our virtual Hawks Abroad Fair. So we will be hosting virtual tables for our different providers to come and talk more about their programs. So Matt will be there. So feel free to stop by. Again, you can find that on our Redhawks Around the World Week website. And we'd love for you to attend. And then lastly, after that, I think, yes, just wanted to share really quickly 2 other events that Stella is hosting with a couple other students coming up. So
yeah, if you are all interested in hearing a little bit more about the student experience of going abroad, a few of us will be hosting an event where basically you can come and ask us any questions. There'll be people from a bunch of different kinds of programs, both SU specific programs, for example, like the modern languages departments, and also ones in Europe and South America and a bunch of other places. So we'd love to see you there. And then this is just if you would like any other information from ISA, feel free to take a little picture right now of this QR code and your information will be sent over if you'd like any more specific information about that. Thank you so much.
awesome. Thank you, Stella. So that is the end of our formal presentation right now, but we do have time for questions. Like I said, in the chat there is the RSVP for the event right after this, but then Jen also put the link to sign up for an info session if you haven't done that, and that'll also take you to advising if you're ready for advising as well. So we'll be here. Does anybody have any questions right now? You can feel free to unmute or type it in the chat, whatever you would like. Okay, so I don't see any questions in the chat. I think, oh, there is. Are there opportunities to study abroad in the summer? Yes. So a lot of the programs that we highlighted today, we kind of focused on the semester portion of their programs, but a lot of them actually do have summer components that you could use. So sometimes they're a little bit shorter, depending on what you're wanting to study. That'll kind of determine which ones will be the best fit. But there are summer study abroad options, both in Latin America and in other regions, that are provided by or that are hosted by our different providers. But then there are also some other short-term faculty-led programs that happen over the summer. We didn't highlight any of those today, but there are some that happen in all over the world, Europe. There's a couple that happen in Asia. So there are options. You can find our list of programs on our website. I'll put that in the chat in just a second. You can see our all of these long-term programs that we just talked about, and then there'll be a link to the short-term faculty-led, and that'll give you an idea of what those options are for the summer. But then once you go through advising, if you're specifically looking at summer, Kirsty and Jen can help you find a program that'll fit for you based on what you want to study, where you want to go, how long you want to go, that sort of thing. You're welcome. Any other questions? Okay. Yeah, thank you all for coming again. Me and Jen will hang out for a little bit. Jen and I will hang out for a little bit in the room if anybody has any last minute questions, but we'd love to see you at our next event, the cooking demonstration. Feel free to find the link. And then obviously our virtual fair tomorrow. We're virtual, but we're here to help. So thanks for coming again. We appreciate it.